Been a lot of focus about security. You touched on that as well with Ukraine, but also obviously with China the last few years, a lot of discussion about its aggression and assertiveness in our region. But you've written a recent paper that talks about our huge dependence on China. We know about it in sort of broad terms, but specifically, this is a security question, isn't it?
Absolutely. So, our relationship with China has been growing for years, and it's been really good for the Australian economy, built by business-to-business interactions, driving growth in our economy. And China is our largest export market, really important for lots of sectors. In fact, in terms of the size of China for the Australian economy, it's a bit bigger than retail. So
the whole retail sector is smaller than our deals with China.
Absolutely. So it's a really big deal. And so we now find ourselves at a really interesting point. China has started exerting itself economically and in terms of geopolitics. And we have to have a position. And there are some things we do absolutely need to stand up to China on. But we need a bit of a nuanced approach because our economy, our business community is well enmeshed with the Chinese economy and with Chinese businesses. And so any pivot needs to take place carefully because we've often thought, Kieran, for a long time, that we have a debate about security on its own, about technology on its own, and the economy on its own. But now we're seeing how they're being linked together. There's a triangulation of these things. So we can't talk about security without thinking about the economy. We can't talk about the economy without thinking about technology.
And one of those technology points that you've looked at closely is this idea of Earth observation, which sounds, a bit airy-fairy, but it's actually worth a lot of money to our economy and potentially a growth industry.
Absolutely. Kieran, space is a great opportunity for the Australian economy, for businesses and for jobs. And one of the key elements is the use of satellites and the Earth observations that come from that, because that goes into lots of different sectors like agriculture, etc. Now, Earth observations generates about $2.5 billion for the Australian economy. The problem we have at the moment is that we rely so much of this data on foreign satellites and privately owned satellites overseas, and that can be a risk if, for instance, there was a denial of service hit to the Australian economy.
Yep, hits key services, doesn't it? Pradeep, Philip, I appreciate your insights. We'll see you next week for the budget.